Faithful Catholic priests answering questions for believers and those seeking truth. Ask a priest, because Father knows best. And now, your host, Jordan Pacheco.
God be praised in his angels and in his saints. Merry Christmas, everybody, and Merry Christmas tide. Let's not forget that we still got a few more days to go here in Christmas tide. I'm Jordan Pacheco. This is Ask a Priest Live. Thank you, each and every one of you, for tuning in. We're going to have a very fun show today. Father John Brancich joins me of the Fraternity of St. Peter and pastor at St. Stanislaus Catholic Church in Nashua, New Hampshire. Now, we are going through a couple of technical difficulties, so Father can hear me and you guys will be able to see him, but we're kind of doing a fun interface audio-wise, so that shouldn't disrupt our show very much. Father, can you say hello and how are you doing? Can you hear me?
Hi, yes, I sure can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear. I can hear you talking through my phone, but I can also hear you in my headset here. So that's just the way Satan's trying us today, Padre. So we're going to do our best.
He is. Maybe I need to put this thing on. I don't know. This is.
Oh yeah.
Is that better?
That's much better.
That's where it's coming out of. Okay.
All right. Listen, Father, in the film world where I come from, we have a phrase called ghetto rigged. And that means like you can have all the finest technology, you can have all the techniques and stuff, but every once in a while you just need to duct tape and prayer something in order to get it to work. So that's all we got today. We just got a ghetto rig today.
You got it. That's all right. And fortunately, it's the last show of the year, so we can go out with the bad and in with the new.
That's absolutely right, Father. Well, I'm glad that we are working as far as everyone listening and viewing. They won't see anything particularly different. So I like our little ingenuity here on the back end. Well, folks, we have a lot of great questions. This has been a really, really tremendous week for questions. We're very grateful for each and every one of you for sending them in. We're going to go ahead and open the phone lines. Let's have some fun. We're back to our OG number today, 1-877-511-5483. If you have questions for Father Brancich, we'd love to hear from you. 1-877-511-5483, or you can email your questions, priests@thestationofthecross.com, as well as type them up in the various ways you may be watching the show live, YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. We appreciate all of them. Again, that call-in number 1-877-511-5483. All right, let's move on. Let's have some fun. This first question opening us up comes from Patrick in New York. Patrick asks this question: how devoted should I be to my parish? Our diocese started a parish family model, and we no longer feel attached to our parish. We've started going to Mass at either the Fatima Shrine or a different parish family a few towns over. Should I switch parishes or should I stay at the church closest to me, even though I don't feel attached there anymore? Thank you.
From the earliest ages of the church, the whole world has been divided up into parishes. So no matter where somebody actually is physically present anywhere in the world, they're actually in a parish boundary. And so that's sort of our default. And when somebody says, well, I don't belong to a parish, well, you actually do, just by the fact that you live in a particular location. So a person really is by default part of that parish. Now the church assumes that is the person's parish, unless they are part of another parish under certain circumstances. There's something called a personal parish, which is in canon law a way that different types of groups can also be grouped together in a parish. Historically, this was a lot of times, especially in the United States, ethnic parishes. So in a lot of cities, you would have maybe a group of Irish or a group of German or a group of Italians that perhaps in the earliest days were immigrants, and the bishop would have created a personal parish for them, even though maybe they didn't necessarily live near the parish. They could go there. There's more recently a personal parish system for other types of groupings, and one of them is a traditional Latin Mass parish. That's my situation. The bishop here established this parish for people from anywhere in the diocese that wanted to be part of a parish that was devoted to the traditional Latin Mass. And so that is another type of grouping. But in order to be part of my parish here, you actually have to register and you have to be coming here. If you do that, if you have an attachment to the traditional Mass, you register with us and you actually are attending here, then this is actually your parish. I'm actually your pastor. But if a person doesn't belong to a personal parish, by default, they're part of their territorial parish. Now, that's a lot of explanation to lay some groundwork for Patrick's question. He's asking how devoted should he be to his parish, and I'm assuming he means his territorial parish. That's the parish that I was just describing that he would automatically be part of. So all things being equal, I would say a person should have a role in their local parish. The thing is, nowadays, all things aren't necessarily equal. You have to also go where you're going to be fed. And if you're not being fed spiritually, if you're coming out of Mass angry every week, if you just are not being fed, then I think this is certainly a reason why the church has these other kind of options in certain cases. Not everybody has access to a personal parish, but if you do, then I think that certainly is a great option. Maybe you're asking, Patrick, about, in fact, you are, I think you're saying you start going to Mass at a shrine or a different parish family a few towns over. So shrines aren't parishes. So technically speaking, you can go to a shrine for Mass in a lot of cases, but it's not actually a parish. And the way you would know that is that you wouldn't be able to have a baptism there. Probably you wouldn't be able to have a wedding there. Parishes are the places where those sacraments are done. So you can certainly attend at a shrine, but ultimately it's not really your parish. You're saying, what about going to a parish a few towns over? Well, I guess if you are not being fed at your own parish, and it's more than just for, small gripes that, you don't like the color of the pews or something like that, I think you would have to have a good reason. I'm not saying that there's not a lot of good reasons today. I'm just trying to give you the principles. So I think that you have to go where you're going to be fed. Your question also has some other twists and turns in that it sounds like a lot of parishes are being merged and closed and merged in your area. And that's, in some ways, that's sad, because a parish really is in canon law, they say it's a person. It's a juridical person, and it belongs to the people that are members of that parish. So when parishes are merged and resources are combined and people lose their parish, I think the canon lawyers would say this is kind of against the rights of Catholics. So there's a lot of very difficult things in your question. I guess I can't answer everything, but I guess I would say you do need to belong to a parish. The church assumes you're a part of a parish, and you're registered there. So you need to have a parish where you're registered, where you're attending. Because let's say somebody asks you to be a baptismal sponsor, and they're from a different parish. Your pastor is going to have to vouch for you and say, yes, Patrick is a Catholic in good standing. I know him. He comes to my church. He's qualified to be a sponsor. If you don't have a relationship like that, then you're really going to be out of luck if you're asked to be a sponsor, or if you need something like that. You need to ask your priest for a dispensation. He's going to say, "Are you my parishioner?" So those are all kinds of things that factor into it. I would say you don't take moving lightly. I don't think it's good to be going someplace different every week, but find a place where you're going to be fed. Make sure that you're actually part of it by registering and active, and then be a faithful parishioner.
Amen. That is a tremendous question, Patrick, to kick us off. Also extremely topical, Father. I'm very glad what you said, especially in that second half there. There is this really distressing reality, especially it seems like for a lot of Catholics on the East Coast. I'm noticing this a lot more, where there were, at one point, as you talked about, like these different parish boundaries, there were churches that were more ethnically tied. Now it's an unfortunate thing where we have more Catholics in this country objectively, but the religiosity of those Catholics is extraordinarily decreased. So I know that, like, Father Anthony Amato, who's on our show, his parish is made up of 3 former parishes. They don't have all the kind of lingo yet. It's a parish family, I guess is what it is, that's merged into one. So it's really, really difficult. And of course, you as a fraternity priest, right? The reality is you're getting people who drive X amount of hours from different boundaries because the Latin Mass, certainly even on the diocesan level now, has been squelched in a lot of places. And so a lot of people kind of coming to find kind of the solitude of Latin Mass too have to go very beyond their bounds to discover that beauty.
I mean, 100 years ago, I think the common thing would have been that you lived within 4 or 5 blocks of your parish. You walked there. That's why these parishes in the city like mine don't have parking. Everybody walked. And now there's not enough room for the cars.
Absolutely right. Well, God bless you, Patrick. Thank you so much for sending that in. We will definitely be praying for you that you find a place where your faith edifies you the most, especially when finding a parish. I know how difficult that can be. Hey, you're listening to Ask a Priest Live. Father John Brancich joins us today of the Fraternity of St. Peter. Charlie from New Hampshire, I see that you're on the line for the call. I figured that we wouldn't quite get to your question with a minute before the break, but guess what? You stay on and we'll be right up with you after the break. In the meantime, I'm Jordan Pacheco. This is Ask a Priest Live. We're appreciative you can call even throughout the break. 1-877-511-5483. Again, that call-in number 1-877-511-5483. You can also email your questions, priests@thestationofthecross.com, or type them up YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. I'll see you right after the break. God bless you.
Hello, this is Father Jim Netto of the Diocese of Portland, Maine. In Krakow, Poland on the 2nd of June, 1938, the Lord Jesus himself directed a young Polish Sister of Mercy on a 3-day retreat. Sister Faustina painstakingly recorded Christ's instructions in her diary, that is, a mystical manual on prayer and divine mercy. These instructions became Faustina's weapon in fighting the good fight. Jesus began, "My daughter, I want to teach you about spiritual warfare." Secret number 6, bear with yourself with great patience. This secret reminds us that patience is a secret weapon which helps us keep our peace of soul even in the great storms of life. Bearing with oneself is part of humility and trust. The devil tempts us to impatience, to turn against ourselves so we become angry. See yourself from God's view. He is infinitely patient, for the virtue of patience is obvious to everyone. From this one virtue, fruitfulness and generosity flow, spreading like overflowing streams through many paths of glory. It is the patient that both commends us to God and keeps us with God. It is patience that firmly fortifies the foundation of our faith. This virtue lifts our hope to new heights, and it makes us persevere as children of God as we imitate our Father's patience. In short, patience is a virtue that allows us to perfect every other virtue. It fortifies our faith, elevates our hope, and helps us persevere in love.
You're listening to Ask a Priest Live from the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network. Have a question? Ask a priest. Call 1-877-511-5483 or email us at priests@thestationofthecross.com.
God bless you, listeners and viewers all, and welcome back to Ask a Priest Live. I'm your host, Jordan Pacheco. I've been saying this all week, but I am going to miss that kind of Polar Express end of How the Grinch Stole Christmas sort of music. So to celebrate today being our Friday, and obviously because on Monday, it being the first of the year, 2024, it is also a solemnity of Our Lady, which means that we're going to be off the air. Oh, it also means it's going to be a holy day of obligation for the solemnity of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Ha! I got you, Catholics. You can't pretend that you didn't know now. But to celebrate the last of Christmastide, I'm going to be a sucker for advertising, and I'm going to drink one of these bottled Coca-Colas, like all those polar bear ads. You remember those, Father? Those like ads like the polar bears and penguins Coke puts out every year?
Oh, I sure do. And Jordan, I don't want to be the Christmas Grinch, the trad Christmas Grinch here, but so the current law of the church actually says in the United States, if January 1st falls on a Monday or Saturday, it's not actually a holy day of obligation. And I'm sorry, I'm the last one that wants to say that. It's a holy day, and traditionally it's of obligation, but it's actually not of obligation this year. But treat it like a holy day of obligation. Go to Mass, abstain from unnecessary servile labor, feast. And I'm sorry, God forgive me that I had to be the one to say that, but we are about truth and accuracy here, and didn't want to throw you under the bus.
I appreciate that, Father. I appreciate that immensely. Also, goodness, modern church, what a cop out. Let's have the first always be a holy day of obligation. Well, okay, I'll word it like this, Father. This might make sense. Okay, so Monday still being a solemnity of the Virgin Mary. It still is a solemnity, though, correct? That's accurate.
Yes, in the traditional calendar, we would say that it's a first class feast. The Reformed calendar's solemnity. Mm-hmm. Okay, for us, it's great. The Feast of the Circumcision. Octave day of Christmas.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Because it's the octave. Okay, perfect. Okay, I'll say this. It's a holy day, regardless which calendar you're using. And as Catholics, we have an obligation to appreciate holy days that the church has set out. There we go, Father. Is that have I dodged legalism there? There we go. Okay, we're rocking. Well, I'm still going to enjoy this Coca-Cola, this time in sadness of the fact that it's not a holy day of obligation. I'm still going to Mass. We're going to do our best. Charlie from New Hampshire, we're going to get right to you. You've been so patient on the line. Thank you for calling in. And what is your question for Father?
Member who is a lapsed Catholic and married outside the church, unfortunately. We didn't take part in the ceremony, and we are not staying at their house or letting them stay with us. But, there's a couple of complications that have arisen recently with Christmas cards. Is it all right to address to their married name? Even, it's their legal name, but is that, acknowledging the false marriage? And also we have, a common family member that's not of the same mind and thinks we're shunning them unfairly and, doesn't want to shut them out. So what could we say to that, other family member who's very close to us, but we disagree on this?
Okay. Charlie, real quick, I have to relay that to Father. It looks like there's still just a touch of technical difficulty for our callers, but I think I have your question here. So you have a relative, Father can hear me here. You have a relative who has been married outside the church, is a lapsed Catholic, and you didn't attend their wedding. You're trying to figure out the best way with Christmas cards and things to how to address them, and the fact that can you use their married name? That was your first part of your question. And then you also said that you have another relative who's who's finding this a point of contention with you guys, this stance.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Charlie, I'm sorry to say you're in very good company today with Catholics. I hardly know any Catholics that don't have at least one instance of this situation in their family. So, take heart to know that you're not alone in this, as sad as it is. So the Catholic Church teaches, of course, that marriage was started by God in the Garden of Eden, and Jesus, when he came, raised up that natural institution of marriage to a sacrament between two baptized people. And the Catholic Church puts an additional requirement for marriage on Catholics to be married in the Catholic Church in the presence of a priest and two witnesses. And one of the reasons for that is because marriage that is a sacramental marriage is an unbreakable bond until death of one of the spouses. So when two people enter into a marriage and it's sacramental, there is no such thing as divorce in God's eyes. There's no way even for the Pope to dissolve that marriage. So it's so important that that couple kind of knows what they're getting into, that they have some tools to be able to forge forward together for the rest of their lives in a marriage. And one of the ways the church ensures that is by saying that the Catholics have to be married in the church, in the presence of a priest and two witnesses. That gives the church a little control to be able to make sure that that couple is prepared, that they know what it means to be married, that they know what are some of the tools that will help them. And because the church has been given by Jesus Christ through the apostles and their successors, the bishops, the popes, the authority over marriage, then the church has the right and the ability to add that extra requirement, which it does add for all Catholics. So that's why when a Catholic gets married outside of the church, in other words, they go to the justice of the peace, or they go to the they're marrying a non-Catholic, then they go to that person's minister, or a rabbi or something, and they do that without permission of the church, because a permission can be granted in certain cases, then the church would say that's, in God's eyes, it's not a true marriage. So as Catholics, if we really believe that marriage is a holy bond, and it is truly something that God established and that God has told us, what it's meant for and so on, then if two people go to the justice of the peace and in God's eyes they're not being married, what happens when they go home that night? Then they're not married, but they're living as husband and wife. So there's a couple problems there. Number one, not following the laws of the church, but maybe even more troubling is that there's still, in God's eyes, two single people now that are pretending as if they are married. So, boy, I know that's hard. Those are really hard sayings, but I don't want to soft pedal and lie. Sometimes people are so confused about it, but that is the truth. Now, the truth that is hard has to especially be delivered with a lot of charity. So when the ball is very hard, it has to be thrown very softly. But we don't just avoid. We don't hide the truth. We don't hide the ball and pretend as if it doesn't exist. We certainly don't want to condone such a situation, and that's why. And I'm sure that some priests will disagree with me, but that's why Catholics really can't go to those ceremonies when two people that are bound to be married in the Catholic Church are not doing that, or when one of them is a Catholic and getting married outside the church, or where one or more of them are divorced and that has never been declared null by the church after examination. So our attendance at those things is sort of like saying, hey, I support you. That's great. Sometimes people will tell me that a priest will say, well, for the sake of peace, go and keep peace at all costs. But Jesus himself didn't say that. He said, I didn't come to bring peace. I came to set. And then he talks about all these different relationships, mother-in-law against daughter and daughter-in-law, and so on and so forth. And so what he's saying, not that he wants people to be at odds with each other, but what he's saying is that true love is not pretending as if the truth didn't exist. So it's a difficult situation, but there's really no question in my mind that Catholics can't go to these ceremonies. It doesn't mean, though, that you shun the person. In fact, if this truth has to be delivered with a lot of charity and very softly, I think you do need to keep the lines of communication open. I think you do your best to make sure that the person knows you don't agree with what they did, but you still love them very much. I would say a lot of good priests that I know would say that you've got to draw some lines. For instance, not staying overnight in a house of a couple like that, because you're really kind of condoning the marriage even more with an overnight thing. Some priests probably would say that you shouldn't even go visit. I don't know. I think some good, solid theologians that I respect would say, if you visit, it can't be overnight. Some people say, well, what about, should I give a gift? Well, here's an example that I heard. If somebody said, hey, I'm going to go jump off the bridge and commit suicide and end it all, will you come and join me and watch me and support me? Well, we might say, well, no, I would never do that, but I'll give you a gift, or I'll come to the party afterwards. I mean, if we put it in terms like that, it maybe starts to make some of these things a little clearer. And I know these are very difficult things, and people probably have done different things, and they probably got different advice. I think you don't look back on and second guess what you thought was best at the time, but going forward, especially with marriage being attacked and forgotten and under fire, I think we need to be very clear as Catholics about what we believe about marriage. And I think, another question, do you address Mr. and Mrs. so-and-so? Well, I think that you need to make it clear to them that you don't condone the situation, that you pray for them, that you pray that they will get their situation right in God's eyes. I guess on one, if it's a big deal, you could look at it this way. The state considers them Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. So I guess if they know that you don't agree that they're married in God's eyes, but you're calling them Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, perhaps in a certain sense that it's true in the eyes of the state, not in the eyes of the church. I don't know. I guess that would be something that I would say, to me, not attending the wedding would be the most important thing. Making sure that they know that you love them, but you can't support the relationship. Those are the really, I think, the most crucial things.
Got it. Charlie, hey, thank you so much for that call. Brother, I will pray for you. I went through a very, very similar circumstance with a family member who I love very dearly only a year and change ago myself. So this is unfortunately kind of this world that is bore for us as Catholics, trying to stay faithful and also trying to really prop up the beauty of deep and sacramental marriage. So I know it's very, very tough. I know that a lot of callers are also going through this exact same thing. Thank you so much for calling and sending that in. You're listening to Ask a Priest Live. Father John Brancich joins us today of the Fraternity of St. Peter and pastor at St. Stanislaus Catholic Church in Nashua, New Hampshire. Well, we got a lot of calls on the line, and I only have 30 seconds till the music. So I see all of you, Sarah, Jack, TJ, and fun fact, Father, all of these people are from New Hampshire. So congratulations. You have officially surpassed all of our Texas priests with most loyalty to state callers today.
Well, maybe they're groupies. I don't know.
That's absolutely right. So don't worry, Sarah, you're going to be first up right after the break, followed by Jack and then TJ. In the meantime, if you all have a question for Father Brancich, we'd love to hear from you. It's always a fun episode when we have a lot of calls. So the phone lines are open, 1-877-511-5483. Again, that phone number, 1-877-511-5483. You can also email your questions for Father, priests at thestationofthecross.com, as well as type them up on YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. YouTube, I see those really great questions in there. We're going to try to get to them if we can. I definitely don't want to lose questions of this sort. Again, that call number, 1-877-511-5483. I'm Jordan Pacheco. This is Ask a Priest Live. Don't go anywhere. Look at that. Halfway through our show already. Hey, I'll see you right after the break. God bless you.
The Station of the Cross began broadcasting in Buffalo, New York in 1999. Since then, our listening areas have multiplied and expanded into several states. While our mission is to grow the Catholic faith through radio and other media outlets, our apostolate is supportive of, but independent from your local diocese. Through your generosity, we are able to inspire countless listeners with the gospel and help lead them to a parish to be spiritually nourished by the sacraments.
At the Station of the Cross, we understand that life circumstances can affect your giving options, whether by moving or by switching banks and credit card numbers. Please let us know if recent changes have been made to your payment information so that we can better serve you as you continue to bless us with your financial support. Update your information today at thestationofthecross.com or by calling 1-877-888-6279, extension 104.
Here at the Station of the Cross, we proudly bring the truths of the Catholic faith to countless listeners through radio and mobile devices, and we're grateful for the feedback we've received.
It just really connected me to my faith. I always considered myself 100% Catholic, but didn't really realize that I wasn't fully practicing my faith, so I learned so much through the Station of the Cross and began just getting deeper in my prayers and feeling just so much closer to God and so well versed in learning more about the Bible and more about what actually it means to be Catholic. So it became very, very important to me, and I listen to the radio station daily, and I absolutely love it. I make it a regular practice of donating every time they have their fundraising, and just love it and wouldn't want it to ever go away.
If you've been blessed by listening to the Station of the Cross, let us know. Call 1-877-888-6279, extension 112, then share your testimonial with us.
Did you know that live video of the show is just a few clicks away? Follow us on Facebook and YouTube at Ask a Priest Live. Search for the Station of the Cross on Rumble. Or check out our Watch Live page at thestationofthecross.com.
Merry Christmas and happy Christmas tide from all of us here at Ask a Priest Live. How's it going, everybody? And welcome back, by the way. I'm your host, Jordan Pacheco. Joining me today is Father John Brancich of the Fraternity of St. Peter and pastor at St. Stanislaus Catholic Church in Nashua, New Hampshire. And let me be honest, judging by the fact that our next three callers are from New Hampshire, I suspect that they know, Father, that you're a pastor at St. Stanislaus Catholic Church, or at least you're in the area.
Perhaps. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Loud and clear.
Okay. All right. Good. Then I guess we're okay. I got a little echo in my ear, but I'll do my best. This is definitely not the way to end the year, but, you know, as what was it that St. John Vianney called the devil? I think he called him Old Snatch or something like that. He had a kind of a mocking thing because he was always giving him trouble. And now it seems that
we'll
even
do our best. You can hear me, Father, correct?
I can hear you, but the trouble is I can also hear myself about a half a second later.
Oh,
so I'll do my best.
So we're
here.
getting closer. Oh, I'm so sorry. So you know what? It's okay. Just take them off and put it back on. I'm not talking. We're doing our best today. Yeah. Old Snatch himself prowls like a roaring lion, and he loves technology minions. So don't worry. We're going to do our best today. Pray that our show goes smoothly. This is why we're very grateful, by the way. We had our 2-day fund drive, and thank you to everybody who donated here to us at the Station of the Cross to help do exactly what you're seeing, which is help the stream run both for radio and online. There's a lot of infrastructure. James, our producer, sent me a picture of our audio board yesterday. Oh my gosh, it looks like it's straight out of Warhammer 40K. So that's why we are especially grateful for each and every one of you. 1-877-511-5483. Sarah from New Hampshire, thank you for being so patient. God bless you for that. And what's your question for Father?
Father, I have a question. Can you tell us about the history of behind the letters of First Peter and why it is that First Peter isn't actually the first letter?
Well, the first letter of St. Peter is actually the first letter of St. Peter, but maybe you're thinking of another letter that was circulating around the time of the apostles that sometimes they thought it was maybe part of Scripture, but the church met in 3 ecumenical councils in the 4th century, and all the bishops, together with the Pope, inspired by the Holy Ghost, decided what was actually inspired and inerrant from God to be included in the canon of the Scriptures. And so that's how we have 46 books of the Old Testament and 27 books of the New Testament. It was given to us by the Catholic Church. It didn't drop out of the sky. It didn't, Jesus didn't carry around his version of the Bible, his King James Version or something like that. It was actually the Catholic Church that decided the canon. And for whatever reason, they decided that the first, that epistle of St. Peter that you're talking about was not to be included. So that's just kind of a short answer, I guess.
Thank you. That's a really, really great question, Sarah. Thank you so much for sending it in. God bless you. Hey, you're listening to Ask a Priest Live. Father John Brancich joins us today of the Fraternity of St. Peter and pastor at St. Stanislaus Catholic Church in Nashua, New Hampshire. We love to hear from you. The phone lines are busy, but we can still get to you. No problem. 1-877-511-5483. Again, that call-in number, 1-877-511-5483. Gonna stay in New Hampshire and go now to Jack. Hey, Jack, how's it going? And what's your question for Father?
Well, good evening and Merry Christmas, Jordan and Father Brancich. One of the questions I had, I think Father B answered already. I was going to ask you about why it is not the circumcision is not a holy day, and I guess that was the tweaking of Vatican II. But in any case, we'll go on to the second
Jack, actually, that was much later. I think that the U.S. bishops decided that only within the last 15 or 20 years, actually.
Oh, okay. I did not know that, but you mentioned it from the pulpit last week ago, and
were you there?
Gee,
you'll have to introduce yourself sometime.
I've never attended your parish, Father. I really
knew
know.
Anyway, well, you should come. Then you could just ask me all these questions in person.
Oh, okay. Well, if I could ever get a hold of you, I would. Anyway, my second question is Epiphany chalk. I have, the pastor at our church graciously gives us little bits of chalk to write the over the mantle of the door, and I, of course, I give a little piece, but when I write what I need to write, I have a little piece left over. I've been saving them, and I date them and make sure they're in a little envelope or something. Are they okay to use for this year, for instance, if I have something from 2016 or whatever? Are they still valid to use for the door mantle blessing? And other than that,
Jack,
I just wanted to mention that I guess I'm a groupie because every time I call, every time you're on, I call. So thank you, Father.
I thought your voice sounded a little familiar. So I just want to expand. I think you were using a little bit of Catholic shorthand, which maybe some people don't know about. Jack's talking about this custom of blessing chalk on the Feast of the Epiphany. And in some cultures, there was the practice or the tradition of having the priest bless the homes on Epiphany. And what would happen is he would go and bless the homes with a special Epiphany blessing, and then he would take this piece of blessed chalk that he blessed, and over the doorway he would write the inscription, which has the initials of the three kings, CMB. It has the four digits of the year, like this year would be 2023, and so the order this year would say 20 CMB 23, and that's a sign that house was blessed, that the three kings visited. By the way, I'll just mention, since we were talking about parishes at the first segment of this show, that was in the days when everybody lived within a few blocks of the church. I knew a lady that was alive in those days in a Polish parish, and she talked about how after Mass, the priest and 5 altar boys would go around from street to street, and they would just bless every house. It took them about 3 hours, and they had blessed the entire parish. Now, if I were going to bless every house in my parish, it would take me probably till next Epiphany. So what we do to try to still provide somewhat of that blessing is that I'll bless the homes of my parishioners from the church, and then I'll ask them to take that chalk and have the head of the household write that inscription on the door. And also there's another tradition is to bless Epiphany water on the vigil of Epiphany, and then that's used to sprinkle the houses. And so I'll ask again the head of the house to go around, sprinkle the house, and we'll do it that way. I would love to walk to each of my parishioners, but they're spread out in 4 states in my parish, so it would be a little difficult.
Indeed. I hope that I'm gonna text one of our priests down here in Denver after the show and ask if we do that too, because I don't think we're savvy at the moment where we get blessed chalk after the blessing from the priest proper, because we have a very similar situation. But that's really great. Epiphany, or the Epiphany chalk, is a very new one for me coming into Latin Mass, into tradition. I like it a lot. I wish I'd been retained when I was growing up. I think that would have been really, really nice.
I guess I didn't actually answer Jack's question. What a surprise. He asked, he takes this piece of chalk that his pastor has broken off to a small piece. He writes it on the wall, then he still has 99.9% of the chalk. Well, it's a sacramental, so I guess if you wanted to use it for, I don't know, drawing holy pictures or something like that, that would be fine. But you should get a new piece of chalk, as it kind of, the blessing is renewed every year when the priest blesses the new chalk. So I would say, if you don't want the old chalk, bury it maybe, or just I don't know, what else can you do with blessed chalk? Not a whole lot. you could write the inscription over every drawings,
door. Father.
Yeah,
that's very true.
Right?
That's yeah, that's an absolutely great question, Jack. And you said something. I'm very grateful for that historical correction there, Father. This apparently the Feast of the Circumcision, or the Solemnity of the Blessed Virgin Mary, not being a holy day of obligation if it falls on the Saturday or the Monday. I want to point something out here, because I got a comment on a video I made recently on my podcast. You see, people, trads don't always just talk about Vatican II. Goodness gracious me, oh my. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say. Not everything we blame for it. Thank you very kindly. Gonna continue on here. Definitely.
I mean, the Council of Trent took away all those nice sequences. We could talk about that.
Okay, but there we go. See what I mean? So this is what I love, right?
Liturgical
we get right into the weeds, no
minutiae.
problem. That's absolutely right. Well, let's get to some clarity here. Let's go to TJ, also in New Hampshire. Hey, TJ, thank you so much for calling into the show today. And what's your question for Father?
Well, first of all, I want to wish you both happy or joyous Christmastide greetings on this 5th day of Christmas. And I am a New Hampshireite. I go to an FSSP church. On Sundays, it's my home church. But during the weekdays, I can't go. It's just too hard to get there in traffic. So I go to 3 very reverent Novus Ordo churches sometimes. And sometimes I live stream the 8 a.m. Mass and watch from my own church. But my question is this. I consider myself primarily a traditional Catholic, but I don't look down upon, as some of my traddy friends do, regular Novus Ordo Catholics. I think we're all of a piece. The Lord's high priestly prayer was that we would all be one, and I think we should all try to honor that. And, you know, there were a bunch of things that happened in Vatican II that were not good, but that's not to say that everything was not good. I think we've had some pretty good things arise from it. One of the things that eventually came about was an updated catechism that addresses topics that are part of the doctrines, but that could not be foreseeable, such things as organ donation and some morality things about sex changes and things like that we don't have in the Council of Trent, from the Council of Trent articulated. So, but anyway, without filibustering, I just want to say that I think one of the blessings that came out of Novus Ordo, out of the council, was the reinstitution of the permanent diaconate. And I was wondering what Father might think about that. I mean, when we at the FSSP church need a deacon, we usually take a final year seminary student, and he serves as deacon. So, but I happen to know, sadly, one of them just passed away very recently, 2 very reverent Novus Ordo deacons that were seminary trained, and it was actually a 5-year rigorous training program. So I thought that they are very useful, and especially for the distribution of Holy Communion, because I think of them as having consecrated hands, not like the nice lady that stands there at some Novus Ordo churches, or the janitor with a keychain that's also serving, Holy Communion. But these are consecrated hands. So I was wondering what Father thinks about that in terms of the permanent diaconate, and is it a possibility that the FSSP might even look at something like that, especially in view of the priest shortage? Thank you for taking my question.
Well, first of all, TJ, I guess you're complaining about your traddy friends. I guess I'm a priest who says the traditional mass, but I don't consider myself a traditional priest. I consider myself a Catholic priest, and I think either you're Catholic or you're not. So if we want to put each other in all kinds of groups, then I don't think that's very helpful. So that's what I would say about that. I think we're coming up to a break, so I can say some more after the break, but I will run out of time if I keep talking.
No, that is a very tremendous question that got me stirring with my brain too, because I was just having a conversation a few months ago down in Orlando, Florida, with Bishop Espliat, and he was talking about deacons and the kind of the role of deacons that he was kind of seeing. He's Bishop of the Diocese of the Bronx. So that's really a really great question, TJ. We want to give that as much time as possible as we can. So right after the break, Father, I will have you take all the time that you want to answer it. In the meantime, this is Ask a Priest Live. Father John Brancich joins us today at the Fraternity of St. Peter. Call in even throughout the break. We'd love to hear from you. 1-877-511-5483. I'm Jordan Pacheco, your host. We'll see you in just a couple of minutes.
Join the Station of the Cross every Saturday morning at 9 after the 8 a.m. Holy Mass, and Sunday afternoons at 2 for a teaching episode on the Catechism of the Catholic Church. You'll learn the essential and fundamental content of our Catholic faith and morals in a complete and concise way with clarity and charity. That's Saturday mornings at 9 and Sunday afternoons at 2 here on the Station of the Cross, Catholic Media Network, and the free iCatholic Radio mobile app.
Wars, rumors of wars, plagues, pestilences, natural disasters, chaos inside the church and outside the church. Are we facing the end of time? And what do we do now? These are the questions we explore in a brand new documentary film called The Secret of the Saints in the End Times. And you could watch it for free right now on the iCatholic Radio mobile app. Just click the ICR Plus icon in the bottom right corner. In a world filled with anxiety, the saints have peace.
What you're offering and giving to me, you deserve to get back because you're offering more than I can give.
I learned so much through the Stations on the Cross. I listen to the radio station daily, and I absolutely love it.
I was attending the chapel and places like that, and through your programs, I was able to find out how other Protestants had come back into the Catholic Church. God bless the Station of the Cross.
Donate today at thestationofthecross.com.
The Catholic Current, bringing Christ to the world and the world to Christ.
You are worth my time. You're worth my undivided attention. God is blessing us by putting us together.
It's funny because people talk about quality time, and honestly, I think it's more about quantity time. But if you're actually engaged with them, whatever it is you're doing, you're spending quality and quantity time with them.
The Catholic Current, 5 p.m. Eastern, from the Station of the Cross and on the iCatholic Radio mobile app.
Enjoying the show? Catch up on podcasts of past episodes on your favorite platform. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, TuneIn, and the free iCatholic Radio mobile app.
God bless you and may keep you, listeners and viewers. Merry Christmas and Merry Christmas Tide. I'm Jordan Pacheco. Welcome to Ask a Priest Live. Joining me today is Father John Brancich of the Fraternity of St. Peter, and I cannot believe it. I know I say this every single episode. I'm so aware of this, but I still can't believe that I only have 10 minutes left in this show. We have so many awesome questions, and it both makes me happy and sad that we never can get to them all. Happy because it means we have more episodes, obviously, and sad because we are always running out of time. So before the break, TJ had a very, very great question, was talking about the diaconate, the permanent diaconate established after the Second Vatican Council in the Novus Ordo, and a question on if that is something of some of Father's thoughts on the permanent diaconate, and also if this would be something that the traditional Mass might have, because obviously there isn't a permanent diaconate when it comes to the Latin Mass and the rubrics.
Well, I guess, TJ threw out a few statements sort of as just done deals, and I disagree with several things that he said. He said that that we have a priest shortage, so we need more help with communion. Well, in my church, we have 2 priests. We both distribute Holy Communion at the communion rail. I've tried, when we've had more than 2 priests, I've tried to add 3 or 4 priests, and it doesn't actually make the line go any faster, because then the people are practically sprinting up to the communion rail. So I think we certainly don't have a priest shortage where I am in that regard. Secondly, I would say, I also, from my understanding of the historical development, I don't think that we would say that the permanent diaconate as established in the 70s was a restoration of what it looked like in the early centuries of the church, because the early centuries of the church differed in that from the historical research that's been done, that the deacons were they might have been married, but once they were ordained, then they were celibate. So it's a bit of a different thing now. So I don't know. I'm not an expert on those things, but I guess I would just say we use deacons when we have them, and every priest actually is a deacon, because when you're ordained a deacon, you're a deacon forever. A priest, I'm still a deacon, so I even sometimes at solemn high masses will serve as a deacon, and I am a deacon. So I don't know that we're looking for I don't think there's any talk in any of the communities that have the traditional mass of a shortage. I think that's all that I'll say about that.
Well, Father, I'm so curious on this thing. So as I kind of said before the break, I had a conversation with a bishop months ago, and he said something very, very curious. And so one of the things that TJ threw out there, and maybe I can get what it actually is. You hear, of course, the big topic on consecrated hands. For instance, I personally choose that whenever I'm attending the new mass, I usually hop into the priest line because there's something about the importance of the priest, and the consecrated hands are important. Do deacons in the new rite, would it be accurate to they have consecrated hands?
Well, no, but neither do the ones in the old rite, because your hands are anointed by the bishop when you're ordained a priest. So before the changes of the 60s, the deacon was actually a minister of the Holy Eucharist, but it was extraordinary. So in other words, he had the power and he had the position, but the church said it had to be extraordinary. And it, practically speaking, from the old timers I've talked to, you would have almost never seen a deacon distribute communion, even though technically he could in the old days. Nowadays, the current code of canon law says that a deacon is an ordinary minister of the Eucharist. So the only thing that's changed is that it went from being extraordinary to ordinary. There's no difference before or after if their hands were consecrated. They never were. The deacon's hands are not anointed with oil. That happens at the priesthood. And I know sometimes that's why people would say, well, they would never go to a deacon for Holy Communion, but he is a minister of Holy Eucharist. So it's not tied to that consecration of the hands. But having said that, I guess that's what I was going to say.
Gotcha. TJ, that is a tremendous question. I know we could chew in it a lot. We have 5 minutes left in the show, but thank you so much for calling in. God bless you. Hey, listening to Ask a Priest Live, Father John Brancich joins us today of the Fraternity of St. Peter and pastor at St. Stanislaus Catholic Church in Nashua, New Hampshire. Not too much time left, friends, only about 5 minutes. So we're going to do our best. I've already given this out to YouTube. Guys, these are such great questions. I don't know if I can purely get to them before the call. So again, if you like to type up your questions live, we like to, of course, templatize them and usually put them in the email format if we don't get to them. But of course, the easiest way is to call in 1-877-511-5483. You can also, of course, ask not on Monday because we're off, but also ask on Tuesday. But we are definitely, looks like my producers tell me right now, we will save them for a future show. We'll get to them in the new year with a winky face, YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. So we got you. Gonna move on here. Brother Knight Scott from Rochester called in, not on the line, but asks a very dynamic question, Father. He says this: I have a friend who wants to become a midwife. Is it a mortal sin to do so if she would be forced to prescribe birth control or abortion pills?
Well, if she could only take the job and have to cooperate directly like that in a moral evil, she should not take the job, because we cannot cooperate in moral evil. And the church has made it clear that using birth control, contraception, it's a moral evil. It's mortally sinful if we do it with full knowledge. Something that a lot of people don't know about the birth control pill is that it has a two-step function. The first step is to prevent the actual fertilization. But if that happens, then the second function of it is to prevent the implantation on the uterine wall. And so it's made to cause an abortion if fertilization actually happens. So there's multiple issues with the birth control pill. Of course, abortion pills, yes, absolutely. We can't cooperate in that either. And so, although there can be a good reason to have a midwife, that midwife would certainly not be able to cooperate with these moral evils.
Amen. I was under the impression, and I don't know very much about this, but I do know how popular doulas and midwives are with Catholics, right? Birth centers as opposed to hospitals, these sort of things, Father. So I didn't know. Maybe it's a state thing. I was under the impression that some places do not have a force. One of the reasons it's very popular Catholics, right, is that there's not a force of birth control or contraception, but it's possible that in different parts of the states that just might not be the case.
Well, I know several of the people around here that I know, Catholics, have their babies at birthing centers with these kind of women helpers, and I know that they certainly don't cooperate in that. So it must be state by state. If you're saying that it's common that this would be a requirement for a midwife, that's not my experience from the places that I've been in.
Brother Knight Scott, that is a tremendous question. Thank you so much. Prayers for your friend. I know a lot of people who feel very much called, especially when it comes to natal and prenatal care, who run up against roadblocks like this all the time. We have some very popular centers here in Denver that are always fighting for such things. I think that's about all the time we have, Father. Thank you, listeners and viewers, all for helping this be such a successful first year for us here on Ask a Priest Live. Father Brancich, before you go, will you leave us with your blessing?
I will. And then I do want to ask you why your light is not green. Today is the day that it should be green, because it's Christmas, Jordan. It's still the octave
my
of
gosh,
Christmas.
I am such a pleb. I'm so sorry about that, Father. You pray, I changed it. Boom.
All right, there we go. I'll give you a blessing. Benedictio Deum Omnipotentis, Patris et Filii Spiritus Sancti, descendat super vosa mania semper. Amen.
Amen. God bless you. Thank you, Father. Thank you for reminding me here in the octave of Christmas. I definitely will keep that on. And for all of you listeners and viewers, we wish you a very Merry Christmastide and a very Happy New Year. We hope that this new year is such a beautiful time for your Catholic faith. Don't forget to pray for us here on Ask a Priest Live and all of us here at the Station of the Cross. We will be back Tuesday because we're off on Monday, considering it's a solemnity. God bless you. Merry keep you. We'll see you then.
Are you looking for a way to protect unborn